Welcome everyone. In today's first workshop, in this afternoon's first workshop, our topic is the future is today. Quite broad, quite vague, and we have 4 very interesting and exciting companies and issues to be presented by a group of very diverse people. We have a biomedical engineer, Anna. We have a textile engineer, Rui. We have a civil engineer, Simona. And we have an economy/philosopher, David, here today. So in the foundation I work with, the Preparing Global Leaders Foundation, our motto is that we prepare young people for a future that doesn't exist yet. I think COVID-19 and the past 2 years challenged our motto. We have to rethink it, but let's see what our speakers think about what is the future today. So I would like to ask Anna first to present her company, and let me introduce Anna Catarina Gomez to you. So she's the CEO of CBR Genomics. Anna is a biochemist with a PhD in molecular biology and an MBA. She has over 15 years of experience in the bio and medtech sectors, where she has assumed different functions. Currently, as the CEO of CBR Genomics, Anna Catarina is on a mission to disrupt the genomic medicine paradigm and aims at bringing DNA to the everyday clinical practice and to families by delivering a whole new concept of genetic screening tailored to the one's needs, from newborns up to adulthood. I had quite an exciting chat with Anna before the panel today, so take it away and make other people excited about your topic.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I do have a presentation. Probably I should go there for the presentation, or should I stay here for presentation? Here? Okay. So thank you. Just this operational stuff. It's really a pleasure to be here, and talking about the future is like the thing that I like the most. I think that in science, what we do is build the future, and so sometimes we'll feel like we live in the future, and then we get catch up by reality. So indeed, we are. The future is today. So if you could move forward. So let's do, every time I'll do like this, you just go and click and move the slides. Okay. So I am, while the slide doesn't move, as Anita was telling you, I am now the CEO of CBR Genomics. It's a startup, so it's like living the startup life. So we are actually facing this challenge that is create a new market space that doesn't exist, and creating market and bring awareness of people to the genomic and to DNA world. And this has been quite a challenge, just as much a challenge as it is to put my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so there we go. Thank you so much. So whenever we're talking about DNA, it's like it's a hope or it's a hype. We have been talking about this, been hearing about this for over 20 years. And actually this is a picture of year 2000 on the edge of the millennial. On the next slide, please. This is not only about cartoons, but also there have been important reviews on that, and news magazines. So where is the future? The future was like 20 years ago, so it's more than time to make it today. And indeed, we know that in health, innovation can improve and will improve global health. And the expectation is by 20 years from now, this innovation will bring huge savings to the health systems. So when it comes to medicine and our health, what we see today, which is a kind of a normalized medicine and a reactive medicine that we only act once we are sick, and it's the same protocols for everyone. But what we want to raise awareness is that everybody's therapy is not our own body's therapy. And indeed, on the studies that exist, there are huge gains on personalized medicine, both for the healthcare of people, but also for the sustainability of healthcare systems. So it's really important that people start to realize this theme of personalized medicine, that it goes together with sustainability of health systems. And when we think about health systems, we have public health systems, we have then our the healthcare clinics and the practice, the health units, and then we have these patient-centered approaches. We have the pension, which is not only about clinical, but it's the lifestyle, the well-being of the person. And then we have this clinical data and what is the clinical status and the healthcare, the health of the person. But on top of that, we also have genetics and the DNA of each one person, which nowadays it has been absent and it only gets a tiny space within the entire system. So at CBR Genomics, what we do is actually we want to face the elephant that is on the room. Because we all have this perception that DNA is going to change, all of us are different people, but then it doesn't get to the clinical and we don't understand how does it affect ourselves as individuals. And for me, this is a real elephant in the room, in the sense that actually, did you know that, for instance, 1 in every 10 children, they have a mutation, they carry a mutation that will cause a disease, a genetic disease, and actually there is actionability. So the earlier you knew it, the earlier you could intervene and improve healthcare of the baby and of the family consequently. Also, when you go for adults, we know that, and actually it's very interesting, all this data has been released over the last 3 months. So these are very, very actual data that came from this study that has revealed that 1 in every six people, 1 in every six one of us in here in this room will probably bear a mutation, a genetic alteration that if we knew, we could actually improve the way we take care of our health. And for instance, this journal, this paper was published in August this year, and it used data from over 10,000 people. So this is not empirical anymore. It used to be empirical, but it's not empirical anymore. It is real, it is science. When you go for cancers, for instance, we know that 1 in every 10 people, or 10 cancers, they have hereditary origins. What does this mean? This means that probably 1 in every 10 persons that suffer for cancer, we could have anticipated. We could have done something proactively if only we knew that mutation was there. This also doesn't mean that 9 out of 10 don't have a genetic origin. So not bearing the genetic mutation does not necessarily mean that we are free of cancer. It doesn't exist. Normal protocols need to be carried out. Normal healthcare practices should be carried out and not neglected. But knowing what is our genes can actually save 1 out of 10 cancer patients. And for us, our company, we have this common denominator from all of us. It's like we have been on this, most of us have been from biochemists, life sciences, have been on science for over 20 years, and it's like, it's enough. It's time to do something because we cannot wait anymore for the future to happen. And that links very well with today, because actually we believe we want to make this our present and genetics must be our present. And we believe that actually knowing is the only option. We cannot be like ostrich, like putting our heads on the sand. We must acknowledge that actually DNA analysis could be improving health lives and healthcare and even healthcare systems. So this has been what we've proposing to do. And actually nowadays, when you look at what is happening, more and more research studies are getting to this conclusion, and actually analyzing DNA is starting to be considered as a first-tier approach for some type of diseases, which is very important for our society as a whole. At CBR Genomics, we have developed a way so that we can do this analysis from saliva. So it's very non-invasive, it's painless, and we can screen for actionable diseases. It's not knowing for having a problem, it's knowing so that we can find the solution and fight for it. And so we do it for babies as a early life genetic screen for genetic diseases. Most countries have ill prick tests that screen for newborns for diseases. We used to say that ill prick tests that are for about 15, 20 diseases are for important and urgent diseases. Our screenings are for important but not urgent diseases because we are looking at them before it would be a problem. We also have some analysis for people with intellectual disabilities, mostly children. We have made our proof of concept of the technology with children with intellectual disabilities. Actually, I was very, very happy and touched by this because I had the opportunity to deal with families that were struggling with their children's were sick. They knew that they were sick, but they could not know what was the cause of diseases. Am I going to get pregnant? My next son is going to have the same diseases or not? Or my healthy daughter, is she likely to have a kid that would have the same disease as the brothers? And the most challenging cases that was solved actually was giving a diagnosis to a boy of 20 years old, and it completely changed his family, the way it approached, and gave a new boost on hope on that to that family. We also can do these genetic screens for parents, so that actually, for instance, a couple that is planning to increase the family can screen the genes and understand what are the risks of having a seriously healed children, or to test for an infertility gene. So actually, we think that genetics and use of DNA can actually de-stress life and have families better, more happier. Also, we can do for athletes to screen for genes responsible for sudden death. And this is basically what we do. We have built in an informatic and IT system, which we call our operative CBR operative systems. And actually it is patent, and because it's not only about biotechnology. Beautiful things happen when biotechnology meets IT and gets with layers of cybersecurity, data privacy, and zero trust, and all that stuff. So basically, this is all that we do, and actually our team is 50-50 in terms of IT and biotech. I used to play around with people and saying that to the end, we all work with code. For one of us is genetic code, for the other is binary zeros and ones. So we do believe that our genes, they harbor our past and our future. I used to say, like, for me, a gene is like a Patek Philippe. You never really own it. It's like it passes from generations. You receive that from your parents, you deliver that to your children, and you don't actually. I am very fan of their marketing strategy, because we really never own our genes. And we believe that the future is DNA-based healthcare, as it will allow to define the best monitoring plan, health monitoring plan. It will allow to select the most adequate treatment, and it will allow the access to genetic therapies, which are the present also. They are not the future. And if we think about genetic therapies development pipeline, we already have 7 diseases for which there are approved genetic therapeutics, but many more are on the way and are on the process. And actually, in terms of healthcare systems, these are very, very expensive therapies. So the sooner we know them, the sooner we detect them, the more cost-effective they will be. So it's crucial, actually, to go and bring to life diagnostic and DNA-based diagnostic today, yesterday even. So we really believe that knowing the genomic data, the DNA data, has impact not only on us as individuals, but on the systems as a whole. And if we think of our current and post-COVID health systems that have been take a toll, and they are very much destructured. And I think that we are on the verge to move for this new paradigm of healthcare 5.0, which is human-centered. It's human, it's individual-centered, not patient, but individual-centered, where we can have the empowerment to make preventive and predictive approaches. Of course, the DNA is a part of it, but not the only part of it. And everyone has responsibilities to hit. It's not only about public health systems, it's also about insurances, but it's also about even as entrepreneurs and as business men and women, we know that in our companies we also must provide some guidance and some support in terms of health systems. And also I think that we all as a community, as a society, we do have some responsibilities to move these things forward and then bring everything to life. So we believe completely that DNA will be ubiquitous to support individualized healthcare decisions. This can be as weird as like 10 years ago we would be hearing about ubiquitous computing, and today we all have supercomputers in our pockets. So we believe that DNA should be at the clinical desk to help to take clinical decisions and healthcare decisions, but of course that it's not the only driver for clinical decisions. So that's pretty much it. Please feel free to contact us, to scan the QR code, to join us, to follow us. And we think that DNA-based healthcare will bring better life and happier life, better health and happier lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. I'm already looking forward to the discussion following the presentations. And just referring to one of the workshops from yesterday, the Female is Future, said Marie-Pierre. So I'm super happy that 3 out of the 5 people on this panel are women, actually. So the next presentation comes from Simona Kalinovska. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So Simona is the CEO of Trimon, and she's from Slovakia. She's an ambitious and energetic person, always looking to learn and develop her skills. With several specialized trainings, she became an expert in the field of fire detection and prevention, civil defense, and civil engineering, and created her own business to provide services in the fire and rescue industry that saves lives through IT, technologies, robotics, and firefighting equipment. Quite a futuristic company. And in the last 12 months, she and her team have created bespoke IT software for the repatriation center for patients. They edited important data and worked side by side with the government of Slovakia. Simona, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I am very glad and happy to be here. And yeah, I have a short presentation. I would like to introduce you myself, also what we are doing in Slovakia, and show you how we really use technologies in real life. So yes, next one, please. This is a short overview which you already said. So let's go on. Yeah, company Trimon. I'm the founder, also the CEO of this company. We have a base in Slovakia more than 10 years. And how you can see, I choose the technologies which are really the future. We believe in it. So I will speak about robots, about software and technologies, and also about the 3D scanning of terrain. Because always when we need to make decision, I'm sure we need the data. So from terrain, from everywhere. Next one. I'm sure all of you, you know for what we need to use the robots and everything. So robots are changing the world by helping humans to do things better, doing things that were not possible before. Robots serve in where interaction with people is needed, or they can help to protect our own personality, or also protect the firefighters, police in the scene, in the terrain. So yeah, I would like to show you the real pictures from the terrain. Next one. Yeah, this on the left side, I'm sure you heard about the big fire, which happened 2019 in the Paris, in the Notre Dame. It was a huge problem because it was for sure very high temperature. The building, it was a problem because the high risk was of collapse of nave roof. So the best what we can use, how we can help, we use the robot Colossus, because we can send him directly to the fire, because he is fire resist. It was inside the building, it was more than 800 degrees. And also we put a camera on the robot. That means all information data we have outside in the control room, and the commander could more easier to manage or information to the firefighter. He could say from which way it's better to go inside, and it's really protect the firefighter from the fire. The next one on the other side, you see another kind of robots. They're using this back, please. This is the robot which use it for military department. That means when something happen in the field, you need very quick to make evacuation of the injured people. So this is the robot Barracuda. It can hold more than 300 kilos, and also can help and have some protecting ballistic shield. So always we would like to protect the real life and be more helpful in terrain. So yeah, we can continue. On the next slide, on the beginning, how we said, it was a very big problem in Slovakia when the corona started. The Slovakia, only imagine that you can have information, we have a population only around half and half million people, that's all. But always when something happens, you need to manage everything. So we can go to the next slide. This is the real photo which you can see. And what was the problem? When the corona was coming, for sure nobody was prepared, from the government, for the firefighters, nobody. And also we don't have any kind of tools, softwares, how to collect data, how to sharing data, and planning the testing and have the result and everything. So the big request was coming from the firefighters, because they know we have big experience from the software. They ask us if we can help. For sure, we say yes. And we was all 3 months when the corona started in the field, in this repatriation center. That means all citizens which was coming from the abroad, they was staying on the borders, and the police was trying to collect all information. Before technologies, they're using pen and paper, really, in this century. So you can imagine when come the old bus with 100 people, and always maybe 3 police was staying there and looking on the people. What should you do? Well, how I should all everything writing? It was really horrible, stresses, and you need to collect this data and sharing to this hospital or this repatriation center. So we prepared a mobile application, and it's scanning all data from ID card and pass. So it was only 2 clicks, and they have all information on the datascope on the computer, and all another rescue services can see who is coming, where is he coming, when should the person have next test of COVID. So it was really, the process really more faster, and it's what the best, because they don't have any kind of mistakes, because when you need to something rewriting from this paper, it's always very difficult. And after that, we was sending this information to the decentral and planning the test and the results. And to the end, when is everything coming to end, after these 14 days, the people, when they're lucky, they go back to the home, and we have all information and history of this patient, and we will sending to our national health care. And yet this is what we was doing in the real life and during the corona. And I am happy that we was possible to help our government. So can you please next? The next one, how you can see on the picture, is a tablet in the fire tracks. It is the same when the fires are going somewhere on the scene. They need to have all information: what happened, where happened, who is injured, or navigation and everything. So yeah, and now in Slovakia we are using more than 6 years this special tablet. Next one. Yeah, you can see how it looks. That means we are integrated with emergency number 112, and all information from this operator he is sending to the tablet. Immediately it started the navigation. That means they are more faster on the scene. That means because, you know, when something happens, each second it's counting. So they have directly emergency psychic navigation there, information, and they're also using the status, because when it's very noisy, it's very hard to say something or describe the scene, because always the officer in the emergency number need to know how big is the crash or the problem. So they can send one picture or video, real life, and they have immediately the same information, all commander or rescue services in one time. So this is how it really help. And also they have a special database like hazmat or the plans of the building. They can have also the special plans of the cars. That means when it's car accident, then immediately can come to you and they will know which model is it, and they can cutting you and put outside the car, and it's not effective. So thank you. We can go to the next one. And the last one about what is this the future, what we're also thinking for. So the most discussed topics in this 21st century are climate changing, carbon neutrality, digitalization, and globalization. They have an impact on the lives of all people, the quality of the environment in which we live, the health of the world population, the development of cities and urban areas. At least, but not least, they shape humanity to which they are giving direction. Digital technologies and their potential can make a huge contribution to sustainable development and to readdressing global challenges. So we can go to the next one. You see what everything is possible to digitalization from the sea to the air. And here you can see only a few methods which we are using for digitalization. Sometimes we had the one panel before, it was about water. So maybe we need to have this microbiology, or what is underwater. We need to see these pipes, these cables. When there's something problem, you need to see directly located. And all these technologies really help to know where is the exactly problem, and really fast, because now is the time we don't have time. So every time it's counting, and every second and minutes. So yeah, next one. This is some small case study how you can see what is the results of the scanning. We have we can see the green areas, water areas, how many buildings, how huge is the CO2, and all information. But it's really a huge topic, and that's I would like to share only a few information about it. And I'm sure if you would like to know more, just I will be stay here and we can have some coffee and we can continue with these topics and discussing. Then thank you very much. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simona. So I already found a common point in both of your presentations. You're helping people in a very super nice way. So let's move on to Rui Martinez, who is the CEO of Innovafield. Rui was born in 1973 in Vila Nova de Famalicão. Sorry for my Portuguese. He holds a degree in textile engineering from University Minho, and a graduate degree in industrial management from University Luciada. His professional career began in 1997 as an intern at Textile Tearfil, and in 2001 he took over the industrial direction of his company. From 2008 he was administrator of Antonio Almeida and Sons, and in 2013 he took over as administrator of More Textile Group. Rui has been since 2014 CEO at Innovafil, a company that is on the vanguard of research in new materials, thread production, and material recycling in the fashion industry. I had an exciting chat with Rui before the conference regarding how to make the textile industry sustainable and embed it in the circular economy. So I hope you will enjoy his presentation too.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Rui. I'm the CEO from Innovafil, correct? And I'm glad to be here to try to explain a little bit what we do, where we start, the starting point, and now what is our goals to the future today. Okay, so Innovafil, it's a brand new project in the north of Portugal, here nearby 20 kilometers. So it's in more or less in the center of the biggest textile cluster in Europe, here in Portugal. So the first goal was to bring together new products and add value products to the textile, together with the mother company, who is Mundifios. Mundifios is the biggest trader in Europe of yarns. So we only in Innovafil make yarns, and the Mundifios only sell yarns. Okay, so yarns is the first step of the textiles. Our clothes, our bed sheets, our protective clothes for the firefighters also, and the main goal was to be the complement of the range to Mundifios. So Mundifios is trading and making stock here in Portugal of yarns, bought yarns all over the world, storage in Portugal, and sell it to Portugal and all over the world. But there is a lack of type of demand that these commodities cannot cover. So the idea is to start a production, but not a spinning mill like the last one that during decades were closing here in Europe and even in Portugal because of the globalization that we assist, that the price of the textile was much cheaper coming from Asia than produced in Portugal. So the main goal was to make a complement range, so make different yarns with different materials, short delivery time, and very flexible. So starts 7 years ago in Innovafil with 120 workers, and with two types of mills. We make color yarns and accrue yarns for fashion, of course, is the biggest market, but not also for fashion, but also technical textiles, firefighters also. And we start thinking in the product, add value products, different products. So we have started in 2016 a R&D department. So this department called Need Yarn, we start to research new fibers, and then with the market turns a lot, and the demands and the world is changing because of these climate changes and this big problem of sustainability of the environment. So as you know, the textile industry and fashion industry is the second more polluter industry in the world. So right behind the oil industry. So all of our categories of products, not only in fashion, but also in sports, outdoor, and technical textiles, they require sustainable products. So we start to look at new types of fibers that are sustainable. What we call sustainable fibers. It's fibers that is much more friendly to the environment, like organic cotton. Okay, organic cotton, it's a huge discussion about organic cotton. I don't know if you are aware of this, but even because the cotton takes lots of water and the fields and also the chemicals. So organic cotton comes to the first line of as a solution. But quickly, we realized that the organic cotton is not enough. Is not enough, and the population will grow, and the needs of textiles will grow. So we cannot use more land to make cotton crops. So we need to get other solutions. So we look at other materials and other natural materials like hemp. We are working with lots with hemp, and hemp is growing a lot, like bamboo and other types of raw materials that grow fast and don't need a large range of fields, and they don't need chemicals to grow, and they don't need a large amount of human intervention. Okay, so this is one of the first goals, and the market is going in this direction. But this is not the only solution. The solution that solves the biggest problem that we have, because this fast fashion market is putting each hour tons of used clothes in the trash, and we incinerated them, or we put it in a landfill. So what we think is to with our partners in Europe, mainly in the north of Europe. Why that? I don't know if most of people realize that our clothes came from cotton, mostly for cotton, but also for cellulosic fibers that came in from the trees. It's a forest. It's also a forest problem. And from the oil, like the polyester and acrylic and so on. So in terms of cotton, we already realized that the cotton cannot grow more. Okay, and in terms of cellulosic fibers, we understand that the forests are also a big problem. So we need cellulose. And what we think with our partners is, why we search cellulose in the forest, in the woods, if we have a big source of cellulose in our old clothes, in our used clothes, because made of cotton have 94% of the cotton is cellulose. And if you cut a tree, it's only take more or less 50% of the tree is cellulose. Okay, so we have a huge raw material and we take it out. So this circular economy, this circular and this 360 that we want to promote, it's our main goal today. So we associated, we are, our field is in association with other partners, mainly in Finland, with a large knowledge in the cellulose pulp. We are trying to do 3 ways. One is the mechanical recycling. Okay, mechanical recycling means that we take our old clothes or the waste of the production, the textile production during all the steps of the production, and put it in a machine, destroy it, and turn it again in new fibers. Okay, in cotton fibers. But the main problem of this recycle and mechanical recycling is that the fibers the output who comes from these machines are short fibers. Because the fiber, if you can imagine, the fiber it's taken out of the field, the cotton is taken out of the field, is spinning, it's going to the weaving or the knitting. So then we use it, we wash it, we use it, we wash it, and in the end we destroy it. And we have the same quality of fiber as the beginning? No, this is impossible. So this is, okay, a solution, but not the main solution for the problem. What we can use, these short fibers, we can use in different and specific application, like in the sweatshirt, for instance. Everybody knows a sweatshirt. We have the outside of the sweatshirt or the inside of sweatshirt. So we can use in this thick yarn that we use to warm up our body inside these short fibers. So it's useful, but not the big solution. Okay. So one of the things that needs to change, it's the way that the designers are projecting our clothes, because if we mix materials, for instance, if we put some difficulties to the recycling. So one of the things for the mechanical and recycling is the designers think in design clothes that are easy to recycle. Okay, so nothing that we done until now. They look for different things, beautiful things, fashion things, and not thinking about the end of the life of the pieces. So this is one of the part that we are working. So in Novafil, I have a partnership with a big company in Portugal that have this big machines who destroy and turns the waste or old clothes or in fiber again, and we pick these fibers and we blend it with other fibers and make yarns again to be end use. But the main cause of the main volume of the clothes or that we take out every day, it's for me, and in our opinion, it's the chemical recycling. What we mean in the chemical recycling? It's picking out all the waste that we generate during the process, the textile process. It's a lot. And all the end clothes that we use, or we don't want more. Sometimes we don't use it and we don't want it more. And go to a recycle center that turns this in and separates the cellulosic part chemically, the cellulosic part from the chemical part. So it turns out in cellulose and in polyester also. Okay, so this is a thing that I believe is coming now, but I believe it's not yet done in perfect conditions. But I think it will be something that we will achieve easily, because as we see here with the DNA or other things, the human can do things much more difficult than separate the cellulose from old clothes from the synthetic part. So it's only a question of investment and putting people and develop projects. It's a political decision. In my opinion, it's a political decision. So Innovafield is take places with other partners and started with I can give you 2 or 3 examples. One is already in the market. It's called Circulose. It's made by 20% of they start with jeans. Jeans is much more easy because they are the pigment, the dye stuff they have. It's indigo. I suppose somewhere in our lives we heard this word. Indigo is easy to take out. So they dissolve the jeans, who is more or less 98% of cotton. So they dissolve this and mix it with wool, 75 of wood, 25% of cellulose coming from jeans. Okay, used jeans. So we have brands like Levi's who bought all the production immediately. Okay, so the brands needs these solutions. The brand needs these solutions. So then the brands are looking for these solutions because they have to contribute to a solution. Because it means we need to have a solution for this, and we need to work on this direction. So Levis immediately brought all the first production, that what we heard about, and we take some of the fibers and we spin the fibers and we make garments, and the garments are really nice. But this circulose is not perfect because it's also a viscose. Because in this kind of textile problem, we have the problem of the raw materials, how we get the raw material, and the second problem, how we process the raw materials. We get cellulose, and we have two turns in fiber. So the second one, it's Infina, it's Infinity Fiber. It's a huge project. Who come with us. We talked with us 4 years ago, and it turns like an European project. And this moment, led by Adidas and H&M. So Adidas and H&M leads a project who 10 companies. One of them is in our field, and they are 100% making cellulose fibers from old clothes, and also we are picking up the waste of the agriculture. Some plants that we don't want it, after we do the crop and we burn this, so they go and also get this cellulose. This is called a New Cotton Project. If you can go easily to YouTube, and you see some presentations of New Cotton Project, and as the name says, is the new cotton, the cotton of the future, or the alternative. That is what Innovafield believes, and we are partners on this, and we are strongly involved on getting this solution, contribute for a global solution for the textiles and for the future. Thank you.
You can hear me now. So thank you very much, Rui. I think you contribute greatly to resolving one of the greatest challenges today, which is making our economy more sustainable. So I think it serves as a role model to every one of us. And last but not least, we have David joining us online. David, we can see you. Yes, hello, David. So personal statement from me, it was one of the things on my bucket list to be one day with a panel on David. David serves as an intellectual role model for many people in Europe. So he's the Global Communications Manager of Generation, the largest global employment program by annual volume that both trains and places people in jobs. He has 8 years of work experience in marketing, project management, and public policy. Gained in organizations ranging from the Council of Europe, the United Nations, L'Oreal, and Google. He was educated in business and management at the University of Glasgow and public policy at the College of Europe. David has guest lectured at renowned universities such as Cambridge University, the College of Europe, and delivered keynote speeches for a wide range of clients, including Google and the European Commission. He has been recognized as an influential leader by the Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business and included in the Forbes 30 Under 30 list for his work to equip young people with digital skills. And for more information about David, you can visit his website, davidtimis.com. And David, your key topic is the future of work. I think we can connect it as all of the three speakers are sort of disrupting their own industries, creating new jobs with skills that have never been existing on a market before. So here you go for the global overview.
Thank you very much for the lovely presentation. It's also a pleasure and an honor to be with the fellow active young European, as I would also like to describe myself. Not yet a philosopher, but definitely I like to philosophize. I'm going to share my screen if I may, because I know that I have, if I remember correctly, 10 or 15 minutes to make a short intervention. Is that correct? Just to make sure I'm within the timeline.
Hear me? Yes.
Yes, now I can hear you.
So you have 10 minutes, 12 if you want to extend it.
Oh, okay, perfect. No, I'll be fairly short because I do look forward to the conversation. I will try to share my screen, which should be quite straightforward. I think you're now seeing what I see.
We see your screen? Yes.
Perfect. So I have put together a few slides which cover the topic which is the dearest to me, and it was even before the pandemic. The pandemic just made it sexier for everybody else, which is called the future of work. I've been active in this space throughout my career, despite all the organizations I changed. At the UN and the Council of Europe, I was working to help young people be more aware of sustainability. At Google, I was focusing on digital skills. It was always about reskilling and preparing, especially young people, but not only, for the future of work. Now, with COVID, many of the trends that I've been following for the past few years have been accelerated. And I'm going to, in the following minutes, show you some of the things we as individuals, but also as people working in organizations or actually leading organizations, trends that we should be looking closely at in the coming months and years. So, first of all, how COVID-19 will reshape the ways we work. And these are some interesting trends that we've been seeing since the pandemic started in 2020, um, which are influencing, first of all, the jobs. So we see low wage jobs are actually declining, and this is happening a lot because of the measures that came with COVID-19 and people being stopped from going to the office. But for some people which are not lucky enough maybe to work in the service economy, which allowed many of us to work remotely and to even take part in such conferences remotely, many people throughout Europe and the world work in jobs in which their physical presence is required. So such jobs have been declining even before the pandemic due to automation. Now with the pandemic, they have been declining even more. And all the growth that we've seen happening in the last few years, it's been actually in the higher paying jobs that allow you to work remotely. So this is how COVID-19 is reshaping the nature of jobs. When it comes to the people and how it's influencing us, first of all, as you can see here in the sort of a snippet of the research I'm quoting here, 1 in 16 people will have to change not just job but industries, and this is something that in some cases it comes as a consequence of COVID, meaning that people were forced because of the measures taken by their companies, either laying off people or implementing new software that can do the job faster. But in some cases, it's a decision that the individuals, the workers, took themselves because they realized in COVID, whilst working from home, that they're not happy in that job. So we see a lot of people not just changing jobs, but changing industries. We also see how COVID-19 has not impacted everybody equally. We see young people, people who just graduated, especially, so Generation Z, and women being disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Why women? Because obviously they were the ones taking time off from work to take care of their young children, especially in many households. And this has been seen throughout the developed and the developing world. And why young people? For the obvious reason that it's definitely harder to get to know your colleagues, to onboard yourself in a new industry, and to even start your career at the time in which everything is done remotely. Not even to mention, it's really hard to be promoted, even if you are a Generation Y, so millennial, and you are maybe in the job for 2 or 3 years. It's much more difficult to do networking on the job whilst everything is happening remote. So young people have definitely been more affected than more experienced workers. And finally, the way companies have been affected, there have been many ways, of course, but I just mentioned a couple here. The good part is that companies around the world, especially large multinationals, and especially from the tech industry, which in many cases does lead with innovative practices like this one, there's been a less focus, even before the pandemic, on degrees and job titles and more on skills assessments. Especially companies like Google or Microsoft, for instance, have mentioned and already implemented practices which they try to recruit a more diverse pool of individuals, and they actually accept in the interview pool, even in some cases, people who don't have higher education, who just finished high school, but who can in an interview, especially if they do an interview for a more IT focused role, prove their skills with certificates or with the portfolio they have. Another interesting statistic when it comes to shape the way companies are functioning is that many office workers working in the service economy, 25% to be more precise, will only go to the office a few days a week. Then the rest they will work from home, which is already happening. And as we speak, I'm calling from Belgium. I am working from a remote office space now, a WeWork space, but for most people working for companies based here and working in an office, the government has reimposed the lockdown, which means that they have to work from home. So it's going to be really hard to say that companies will, whenever COVID stops being a threat, will just revert to going Monday to Friday to the office. I think most serious companies and most companies that see into the future will realize that there's no turning back, and that allowing their employees to work a few days from home is going to be mandatory if they still want to keep those employees. So this is the macro view of how COVID will reshape the ways in which we work. I'm going to look now at maybe two of the big trends I see, and maybe just mention without having slides a few things about the last trend, which is also in line with what I do at Generation, the NGO I work for. The first trend is the remote work we're all experiencing, or most of us who are working in service jobs are experiencing. So this was a study done by CBRI, which is a large company based in the UK but active around the world, which is involved in the real estate space, and they've asked in this workforce sentiment survey who would actually like to go back to being fully in the office Monday to Friday. And as you can see, the results are 6% only would like to go back, whilst the majority would like to either have a few days at home and the rest in the office, or even fully remote, 28%. So there's definitely a majority of people who want a mixed office to home environment in the future of work. We also see, and this is something which there's no surprise, I'm working from a WeWork office. I believe such spaces will be even more important in the future, because basically companies, especially large multinationals, now in many countries are again in a state in which they cannot send their employees to the office because it's too dangerous. However, there are roles which might require to be in the office. Why renting a whole office space and paying hefty fees and rent, while you can on a sort of a monthly basis pay a premium account for certain members in a WeWork space or another remote office, and to use just the headquarters as the place to onboard people, to have important meetings every now and then, but to be more modular in the way you arrange your office space and be more flexible in terms of the way you require your workforce to go or not to go to the office. So the headquarters will remain and will become even more important from what I can see in the future, based on the research done by CBRI and other publications, and having companies having deals with WeWork and other spaces like this, like Regus, for instance, in which they rent on a quarterly or even monthly basis spaces for as many employees who actually need the office, will become more and more, I think, common in the coming years. And this is the message on the remote work part I would like to leave to all employers present in the room and those watching from the comfort of their homes, is that the future belongs to employers to strike a balance between the flexibility they provide their employees and the quality of their workspaces. Meaning that now what I have at WeWork here in terms of amenities, free coffee, free juice, and all these small things that tech companies have been doing for many years, more and more companies will have to implement this and to change their office spaces to make them look more, to quote my former colleagues at Google, googly, to be more conducive for creativity. Even banks, even traditionally more conservative companies and organizations will have to adapt if they still want the employees who go to the office to be actually encouraged and happy to be in these spaces. So flexibility is needed, and an increased redecoration and redesign of the office space and what we think of an office space. And the other trend I see as being more important, and I hope that many people in the room today would not consider it a taboo anymore, but unfortunately, until COVID came, for many companies, mental health at work especially was considered a taboo, not something to discuss, not something to even mention in a whisper on the hallways of the company. However, now one of the pros of the pandemic is that it forced companies to bring mental health to the front, and it's for an obvious reason, because the stress and anxiety that is affecting all of us in different ways. Start of the pandemic, since all these lockdowns being lifted and implemented, this has an effect on people's productivity, people's health, and employers, many of them, I feel they're taking notice. The issue I see, and I speak really from experience here because I was previously with an employer who did see the problem, but reacted like many other employers wrong. They saw that mental health can be sort of treated by leaving things to be as they are in terms of the workload, but just bombarding the employees with yoga classes, with applications for mental health, whilst actually the biggest issue that is affecting people, the stress and anxiety that we've seen with all the lockdowns, the way you can decrease it is actually by looking at decreasing the workloads of people. We all know that working remotely is good in many ways. You can be closer to your family, you can work from the comfort of your home, but not everybody's as lucky. Not everybody lives alone. Some people, especially young people, still live with roommates, with flatmates. Not everybody has a good Wi-Fi. And the problem which we all have is that it's very hard to disconnect from work when your work is not ending at the office. You just close your laptop, but many of us open it again after dinner if we're at home. So the biggest threat to mental health is actually COVID, the things that it triggered. But the best way to fight it as a company is to make sure you implement guidelines that, for instance, your employees don't send emails after 6 p.m. so that you can encourage them to disconnect from work. So this is maybe something that many companies ignored, but based on this and other surveys that I've researched over the past 2 years, have proven time and time again as much better measures than another yoga class or another mental health app, which many companies in good intentions wanted to provide their employees with. So this is a conclusion of how I see the challenge of mental health and how it could be tackled by companies. It's that all the supported messages and apps were, in many cases, ultimately meaningless if they did not address the workloads that have increased for many employees who now don't disconnect at 6 or 7 p.m. They potentially continue working and use the commute work that they used to have as still another hour of work in many companies and organizations around the world. And the last trend, which I didn't mention here in the slide, because I have a whole presentation about it, is reskilling. What we've seen throughout the world, and regardless of the industry, more and more there's a need to reskill, which the very important difference from upskilling, which means maybe to learn a new skill that could help you do your job better. Reskilling is a complete change of industry. So maybe from a marketeer today to a finance consultant tomorrow. A drastic change which more and more people are making now. And the problem is the reskilling is still not happening fast enough, meaning that many people, especially the most vulnerable ones who are affected by the COVID-19 lockdown measures or by automation, people working in warehouses, delivery women and men, they're the most impacted. And unfortunately, the reskilling offering of companies and government is not reaching them. So without having a moment of publicité, as they say in French, the organization I work for, generation.org, this is exactly what we do. We help the people who are left behind to be reskilled, the most vulnerable people, single mothers who have to take care of their young children by themselves, people coming from minority backgrounds who were a lot more affected by the pandemic than white men in their 50s. And this statistic is throughout the world applicable. So helping the most vulnerable, I think at this stage, when it comes to reskilling, is probably the most important thing we could do as a society. And the next best thing is, especially if you speak at the private sector, and I know there's in the panel, but also hopefully in attendance, many startups, small business owners, and also large corporations may be represented. It's very important to start the reskilling with your staff today, not wait until tomorrow, until there might be an automation, a robotic process automation software that can replace them. Prepare them to do different roles within the company, even if it's a different department today, and don't wait for the moment in which it's just convenient to fire them, as opposed to retrain them into something more sustainable, and decrease the turnover cost of keeping to hire new people by just reskilling what you already have, which is a talented workforce. And as I said, I'm going to try to be short. I will reference the many sort of great organizations and publications. I quoted the reference throughout the slides I shared with you today. McKinsey has been one of the organizations. Coursera, World Economic Forum, and others have been doing some great research on the topic of what the future of work holds for society in the coming years. And I'll stop here, and I look forward for your questions and for hopefully a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Can you hear the applause coming from the audience here? Good.
Thank you.
So I think we heard quite different and interesting for presentations, but there is one common in all of your initiatives, that you are disrupting your own markets. You are creating jobs and market spaces that never existed before. And regarding that, I have a question to all of you. You've been in the industry for quite a few years. But when you were preparing to become the person you are today, like to do the profession you do today, when you were a student, how did you imagine 2020 would look like, or 2021, like today? So how did you imagine it, and how it is different from what you experience today in your respective industries? And I wouldn't like to give an order, so feel free to speak up and feel free to react to each other. Don't wait for me to ask.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. When I was in the school, okay, I remember all time we was learning very old from old books, and was really nothing common with the real life. That I think it's just a little bit pity, because really we need to maybe ask the government to work more with technologies, because the technologies are around us many years. It is not only 10 years, more longer. So we really need to appeal to government. They need to create a new guidelines for education, also for how I set this my software before. The government is not so prepared, and we have all these technologies on the hand. So when I was as a student, for sure I was not thinking that I will be doing this what I'm now doing. So I think it was really coming to me when I was in the field. I was listening the firefighters what they really needed, and around me also. So it's always the best what we can do when we can help to another problems. Also, it's a medical, health, or else. So what is maybe my advice, always to listening around you, and maybe that will be our future. Also, not only technologies, but everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting question, and I pick on what you were saying about. I also never imagined that I would be doing what I am today, and as you were saying, to listen to the people around of you, I would have listened to your mothers, because actually this question makes me remind, like 20 years ago, it was like 97 when I went to biochemist and started taking my degree on biochemist, and I had to make this huge decision: am I going to medical school or biochemist? And I decided to go for biochemist. And 1 year later, I was like fully regretful of that decision, because biochemist has no future. There are no jobs. There is no industry. It's only laboratory blood testing, the only possible way to be doing. And by then I was discussing with my mother. She was telling me, no, you are awful about treating people, and you will never be, will be very unhappy in a profession where we'll be sitting in a desk talking to people all day. And you know, DNA is the future. And my mother in 97, she was saying to me, DNA is the future, and isn't that what you like? Isn't that what you want? What passions you? So that's the future. Stick to biochemistry, don't move on. And so actually, I think that I didn't saw the future. There was no biotechnology industry. It was very incipient, biotech industry. It didn't exist as it is today. But my mother, she did look at me, and she did saw the future in a way that I don't ever imagine. But the truth is, our sector is what it was giving very baby steps, and that's kind of the way also that I saw the future is like, because we are on a ramping and we are moving forward.
It's true that is different, much different, because when we are in an engineering school, we are young, 20 years ago or 20 something years ago, we only focus on productivity, new technologies, the performance, everything and I never imagined then in our days we are much more focused in try to get new solutions in terms of raw materials and try to understand things like agriculture, forests, and integrate these beautiful projects and try to solve a problem that 20 years ago nobody talking about is the environment and the future of our planet. So being part of this, we are focused only in technology and in the product, in the functionality of the product. Now we are much more focused in the base and the raw materials and the sustainability of our industry and the way that we live and our kids will live.
Yeah, seemingly you are more conscious. David, I think we more or less have the same age. And I remember when we were 16, we didn't even have Facebook yet or like digital workplaces. So what is your takeaway on this?
Just to make sure I'm answering to the question is how did if for me 2020 surprised me looking back and how I think the world could have evolved 10 years ago, or if I think for me 2020 finds me in a place where I sort of knew I'm going to be or felt it was my place to be in.
Sorry, we didn't really hear it clearly. Yeah, but like I'm more asking about how did you see the future when you were still studying and like didn't work yet. So of course you had an idea what it is going to look like and how it is different to what you imagined about it.
I don't think it is different, and I obviously cannot argue that I've foreseen any of the big changes that happened in the past few years exactly as they actually happened. What I can definitely say, as I mentioned in my intervention, I didn't think things will be so fast, and I think that's what for many people is the biggest surprise. And by people, I mean citizens, CEOs, presidents. COVID has surprised the whole world with how fast technology can take over for the good, which is to help us find better vaccines and help us order food when we cannot leave our house, but also for the bad, monitoring people, surveilling people. These were all accelerated by COVID. So I think this is my biggest surprise, especially in the last few years, how fast things have evolved and how little time we as a society have to make the right choices. And again, for many of us here present, we're the fortunate ones. Regardless of how good or bad the choice we make now, we will be probably within our lifetime fairly okay. The problem is many of the less fortunate people are already impacted by some of the bad choices we as a society took in the last few years. And that's what I think we should be really careful about and to do things differently for the most vulnerable amongst us, which are still the majority of people in this world. So definitely surprised by the fast speed of things, definitely optimistic about the future, as long as we use this COVID shock as a wake-up time for all of us.
Thank you, David, and I really hope it do serves as a wake-up alarm for all of us. We only have more or less 10 minutes left, so I have one big round question for all of you. We talked about the past and like how did you see your present from like a 10-20 years perspective. We are in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. Changes, as David mentioned, happened super quick. Like the previous industrial revolutions took decades, even centuries. Now changes take years, a decade. So it not even covers one generation, and we live in a completely different world. So what is the goal of your business or of your respective industry? Where would you like to see it evolving in the upcoming, let's say, 10 years or by the end of the decade?
Okay, thank you. Very good question, thank you. I think the field where I am working now, of course, we need also the humanity, the personality for firefighters and this policer. This technology should not always replace any kind of jobs. They should help us. That's how we always said we save lives through technology. That's true, but they don't should replace us or if it's any kind of the job, which was maybe cancel, or always the people we can use for another kind of job, maybe to can help us with the rebuilding, with the robots, because they have so many experiences from the field, and nothing can replace this one, because always we need it. And in our field, I'm sure we will use more and more technologies up and down everywhere, but always for this, making this decision, the end decision, like commander, everybody, always we will have these people inside. Maybe, okay, around the screen will be not always directly in the field. That means we will save this life, because they will go with these robots and in these kinds. So it will be still growing more, but always it will need this humanity, how I said. And always what I'm thinking, never can any kind of feelings and smiles replace the robots. That means this is always what we need to do. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that question. That's a kind of a very open question and dreaming question in a way. The way I see my sector and consider my sector, the healthcare sector as a whole, I think that I hope our vision is like DNA testing and usage of our own genetic information within the clinical practice is a no-brainer. So all this discussion that we are having here today is like, I would say to my children, imagine that once some 20 years ago this had happened. Because actually it will be I believe that it will be just as useful and as frequent and as ubiquitous as blood testing is today in the clinic. No one questions the importance of blood testing in ophthalmology, dermatology, cardiology, all the different specialties of clinics. And I would say that it would be the same for genetics. And if you relate with the blood diseases, only when it is when we run a blood test, it gives our doctors information on our present state of health, and they can act up. It's important, and it gives useful information for their own clinical action. And only when it's very, very serious does it goes for the hematology specialty. I think that in genetics is going to be the very same. It must be banal and frequent and ubiquitous and would be a no-brainer. Actually, it would be a no-brainer. That's how I see DNA within the clinical practice. But I think that this is just part of the future that I see and that I dream of, because with this also, and with technology and with everything, this brings up to kind of the society 5.0, where at the end of the day, and I think that COVID was a big wake-up call on that is for us as citizens to be more aware of our options, be more empowered, and even on our responsibilities, not only on healthcare management, but with environment, with circular economy, with decisions that I do when I'm choosing my job. I have studied biochemistry. Am I going to be a biochemist for life? It's up to me to decide if I want to move and change field and change area, and how will I be upskilled. It's also my responsibility. So I think that we all dream with a kind of future society, but at the end of the day, it will go down to own empowerment, responsibility in a way.
Thank you. In my case, in my particular case, in the textile industry, I would like to assist that these projects that we are involved, it will grow for sure. There are very, very nice projects that are really the pioneers. And of course, doesn't solve everything, but it will be a part of the sustainability of the textiles, this global and circular economy that we need to together to make a better world, and to assist that the textile industry leaves the top of the bad news in this case. Of course, there is several things, the right price that we should pay for the clothes, the long life of the clothes, the fair, the human rights, so many things that are involved in the textile industry that we will make our part. The minimum we will make our part, try and develop these beautiful projects and try to get a better world and get a good solution for the next years.
Thank you, Ray. David.
Yes, in my realm, which is the future of work more broadly, but more specifically reskilling, there's a big discussion going on about what are the jobs of the future and what jobs will be eliminated because of automation and other technologies. And my response to that is, first of all, it's a less relevant question because 10 years ago we couldn't predict that being a podcaster or a YouTube influencer would be a job, but now it is for a growing number of people. So the focus should really be on the skills part. And the right question is, how quickly will we be able to reskill people? Which means the question, the best way to ask it, or the best entity to ask it, is to our governments, because it's the problem regarding the future of work, or the challenge is an educational challenge, is how quickly can our ministries of education and governments can adapt to the changes brought forward by technology in order to educate in time the people to be able to occupy these jobs of the future and to be able to be successful and happy in the future of work. Also, it's a responsibility of each individual, but at the same time, I think our governments and companies alike should do more to make sure that nobody's left behind, and that the fourth industrial revolution, gives opportunity to everybody, not just a select few people. So I would encourage us as individuals to focus more on continuous learning, but also, as I said, governments and companies to focus more on reskilling people, all people, in relevant skills that will help them occupy sustainable jobs.
Thank you very much, David. We have only a few minutes left, so I would like to open up the floor for questions from the audience, if you have any. Yeah, we have one question here.
Hi, Larry Moffat. I'm on the advisory board of Jeune, the Young Entrepreneurs Organization of the European Union. There are many examples of formerly successful companies that failed to react to major changes in technology. For instance, Nokia didn't foresee the smartphone revolution. And other examples. So my question is, in your fields, you're in small companies, so maybe you're more agile than a big multinational company would be, but still, as CEOs, how are you able to run the business on a day-to-day basis, but at the same time keep an eye on new technology, on your competition, on market changes? It must be very difficult to keep that balance, and then sometimes ask yourselves, well, should we continue with our existing technology or should we try something new?
Thank you very much for the question. Okay, I'm thinking for me, it's for sure very important to traveling. That means these last 2 years, it was very hard to travel somewhere. So for me, it's important to go somewhere, travel, and share some information or any other, what is happening in other countries and how it's really work, and sharing these experiences. And for me, now I'm also the member of the Jeune, And I see this is very big value of this association, that we can meet in a one point like we are now today in the portal, and really happy to share each of any other members and from the people from the audience how they handle each problems. And always when I'm speaking with somebody and I'm thinking on the background, sometimes coming the ideas, maybe you know it, or you are in the shower and okay, now it's coming to on my mind. And yeah, this is the first way how I can find new ideas or new technologies. And after that, for me, it's also very important when I see something new one, I go to the customer and ask them, what is the opinion? For sure, not only to one, because one can say yes, second no. So I make the research in the market, if it will be a value for them. And after that, I make the final decision if I should go this way or no. So I think this is, yeah, thank you.
From our side, I see it on a rather different perspective because we are the challengers. Our technology is like 2 years old or something. It's very, very recent and very, very new and completely, it's not yet mature. It's every 6 months it changes. My worries is to keep on the wave of DNA sequencing technologies, but how to surf that wave so that with agility, so that I am a challenger, because actually we are the challengers that we are trying to outperform some of the incumbents that are out there. So I am very much on the challenger side, not yet on the incumbent position that is challenged by the new technology, because we are actually putting on, and we are facing our challenges is to put in the market the state-of-the-art technology, and sometimes we have to do one step behind and to present some smaller, less technological solutions so that people can understand and can perceive the benefit of doing that. What worries me most actually is missing market opportunities, because sometimes I'm very focused on this very high technology end and may miss some opportunities that at a smaller technology scale that need, and actually to which we can actually provide a better service and a better outcome. But I hope that that would be a concern of mine in 10 years' time or something like that.
Thank you for the question, because I understand the question very well. Because also I've been a member of the board of a big companies, and now I'm a small business. You could talk about this, and a young business. So what we do more or less, it's taking a flexibility inside the company, and everybody is focusing together and contribute to take information inside the company. So our strategy was more or less, as a young company, make a big effort in the beginning, try to go to out of the country in trade shows, meet people, make partnerships, present our project to the stakeholders, and then we make a really change in the way that we manage the company. The relations are much more direct. There is no how we call it here in Portugal is it's bureaucracy. Okay, it's the things are much more direct. The contacts are more direct. Everybody is contribute. Since the floor from the company, everybody is contribute to ideas, to things. Everybody is important and belong to the company. So this is much more direct. So that's the way that a small company with not a large number of people can do the things the right way and put us in the lead, or with the best. Okay, the best companies in the reference in the world. Okay.
Thank you very much. David, do you have anything to add, or?
Quick note on the idea of partnerships, which both for the NGO I work for, but in general, I see more and more in society nowadays, the need for partnerships between sectors. So if you're the owner of a small startup, potentially with another startup from another sector, or even with local authorities, it's no wonder that in today's world, I think all the problems or challenges we have are global, and there's no one entity, be it a government or a company, that can solve them. It's only as we see more and more for partnerships that we can solve these big challenges. And in my line of work with the NGO, with Generation, increasingly we see how important governments are for really helping more people and for helping us do our job even better. So I see the future as being one in which the public sector, for NGOs and activists, should ideally work closer with governments and with the private sector. So partnerships are key, and I think this is a conference that also proves just that, given the people you have in the audience, people from across the sectors.
Thank you very much. One last question, very quick question if we have. Yeah, we have there in the background, the very last one.
Do you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm interested in what is your opinion on the more and more automatization of jobs? Do you think, do you look on that like optimistic or pessimistic side? Because I think most of the jobs now that are passive and not very creative are going to be automatized. And the creative jobs will stay, and more creative people will have better opportunities, because less creative will be replaced with computers. So what do you think about that situation?
Who would like to answer first?
No, you can.
David, maybe?
Happy to, because it's indeed what I look at very closely, as I mentioned in the presentation as well. The solution I already gave, which is reskilling, because automation is good overall, because it helps companies and even people be more productive, as long as it's used not to replace the jobs, but ideally to augment them. So for instance, you teach a new employee to use a new software that could, yes, maybe do the jobs of the same employee even better, or do the jobs of two employees, but at least you reskill part of the labor force, as opposed to just firing everybody and replacing them with the software. But the solution is, again, the reskilling part. And I think as long as automation will be coupled by the company implementing it with some reskilling, because of course they will always have to fire people when they implement a new automation software. Unfortunately, it is the reality. But as long as the company plays its part to reskill those people, and that the government provide a safety net for those that were not reskilled by the company, or for which the company couldn't have the resource to help. Again, the partnership is key here, you see. So automation is good, to answer your question, as long as it's coupled with reskilling done by both the private sector, the company doing the firing eventually, and the governments who have to take care of the people who are left behind.
I can answer also. So in an industrial term, if you know well the problems of our industry, the lack of workers that we face, okay? For us, of course, if we discuss this in a global perspective, in the world perspective, okay, it should be different. But if we face the European reality, the Portuguese reality, we have to do this. For us also, these mechanical jobs are to be done by machinery, and live for the humans. The other add value jobs and criteria inside the company. Because if you realize the difficulty that we have to get young people to the industry, it's now the reality. So we are not afraid, because we suppose we will be needed. We will need it in the future, because the demography, it's going down. Kids are each time less. So of course, and probably we can afford better the people in that case, but in the global perspective, it's another discussion, okay? But in our local vision now, we need this automation.
I just like to add a few connect some few dots, because absolutely that I think that it can be a good thing if we leave people to do the value-added roles, because that's where we can actually differentiate. But also, as you're saying, and with the creative people and creative jobs, and also knowledge jobs, because on sciences, on development technology, I think that, and this connects very well with what has previously been said, that there is the challenge for our educational systems, because what we are seeing is that probably the job industry and the way the jobs are carried out is not the most adequate way that we addressed in our educational system, where it's very framework and very standardized, and doesn't push that much about developing of skills as creativity, complex problem solving, and finding other solutions and different ways of looking at the problems. I think that this kind of pulls together very much what we've been talking and what can be the future, that is the need for can be automatized and standardized, leave it to the machines, and invest more on training the brains, because our major asset, it's actually our human brains.
Thank you very much. And I think we arrived to the end of our workshop today. To conclude, I'd like to quote Benjamin Netanyahu. Actually, I attended a workshop about the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the need for a new social contract. And there he concluded, saying that the world has already changed, and the question remains how fast we can adapt to it. And I think that all of our panelists today showed that by great leadership and responsible leadership, we can adapt to it. And we just have to be creative. We have to take the initiative and be innovative. Thank you very much.